Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, having a conversation with Thomas Caldwell. He is chairman of Caldwell Securities in Toronto. Tom, we're just talking about the situation with the U.S. Donald Trump, of course, becoming president again on January the 20th. You mentioned Ontario, and I think we should just delve into that a little bit. Obviously, Doug Ford has been out there. He was on Fox News recently
Yep.
talking about how uh, having a different kind of discussion with the US and Canada could lead to energy superpower, critical minerals, all the things that we can do together to counter the Chinese economic threat. Do you think that's the right message? And do you think Doug Ford's doing a good job getting that message out?
Yes and yes, because somebody has to do something, and something's better than nothing, even if it's flawed, which I don't think it is. He's trying to get a message across showing our relevance and importance to our U.S. cousins. And he's trying to build a foundation in Congress that will be supportive of protecting Canada's position. But I think that'll be the case anyway. I'm not, everybody, they're running around waving their hands saying, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. I think we're going to cut a deal. And remember, Trump likes to do deals.
Right.
And I think, there's going to be a lot happening in this coming year, but both between Canada and America, but geopolitically as well. I think the Ukrainian war is going to be over in a couple of months,
Right.
and the Middle East is going to settle down, I think, also within a couple of months. Really, I think both the Russians and Ukrainians want to cut a deal because they've lost so many lives, but to have a deal imposed on them by Trump, I think that would make everybody kind of happy. And clearly, Israel is trying to establish a peace for the next 15 years, and they're doing so at a great cost in blood. And there's a point at which their reputation gets even further tarnished. So eventually, the deal had to get cut. But that's a tough game because they've been under attack constantly. And sooner or later, if you start a war, nobody knows the cost. So I think there's going to be lots of things geopolitically going on, and I think it fairly well. The only negative, as I see, is Mr. Trump's propensity to protectionism and nationalism, because the world benefits from trade.
Right. Right. But that seems to be his his modus operandi. He's saying that America always has a bad deal and he's going to fix things. But again, there has to be at some point a deal. It just can't go on with the rhetoric and nothing happening.
Absolutely. And, listen, I've done lots of deals in my long and checkered career. And, if somebody sits down opposite me and says, we win, you lose, you know what? That meeting is now over.
Right.
I don't got to kind of deal with something like that. But the good part of his shenanigans, if I will, there's three guys that really run the world right now: Putin, Trump, and Xi. And he's the kind of guy that can get on the phone as a tough guy and talk to these guys as well.
Right.
So I think there can be positives coming out of this. The key in the States is people want less regulation, less taxes, less woke, less political pressure, less intrusiveness in your life. He happens to be the standard bearer of that, albeit a flawed standard bearer. But even if he can get about 20% of what he says done economic, that'll be a positive. And as I said earlier, in Canada, we're going to have a change, I think, for the positive, no matter what. And it will be pro-growth or more growth. And there's a lot behind that. For example, that tax increase in capital gains.
Yes.
I'm a shareholder of the Canadian Securities Exchange, which does venture capital funding, the lifeblood of any economy. And as soon as that tax was announced, every single deal in the CSE was canceled. And nothing has happened since. It's frozen it. And I think that was the thing behind the Trudeau-Freeland crisis. He realized it was a big mistake. He wasn't convinced. He wasn't able to convince young people it was in their interests.
Right.
And so he wanted to make sure the fall guy for that and say, "Oh, I'm listening to the
But
people."
they're still going on with the capital gains increase. It still isn't passed by Parliament. It's
It
very
hasn't
bizarre.
been, but CRA is saying, well, you're gonna have to declare your taxes, and if it doesn't go through, we're going to get you a rebate. Well, that's insanity, because that's depriving people of cash.
That's
Cash
right.
flow. Businesses and people need it. And this 250,000, oh, that's for rich guys. No, it's not.
No.
It's that cottage you're going to pass on to your kids. It's your other assets, your second houses, whatever. We're talking about inheritance. We're talking about robbing intergenerational transfers again. So I don't think it's played well. My gut feel is it's not going to happen, but I'm stunned that CRA is insisting you still pay taxes on something that has not passed. And I don't think when Parliament convenes, that's going to be their first item of business.
It's got to be part of that as well, for sure. March 24th is when Parliament resumes, theoretically, at least at this point. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Tom,
It's
Tom,
like a
we're
soap
going to.
opera.
Yeah, exactly. Tom, we're going to take another brief break. We'll be back at you after these messages.